we don't teach our kids like what to believe, but we teach them how to process and how to interpret what they're hearing and make informed decisions. And we have to make sure that as much as we're teaching our students and young adults, the importance of marching in the streets, they also need to know how to march to the polls. Like, both need to be true. You can't do one and not do the other and expect for there to be real change within our communities. So, with regard to the parents in Florida, and in regard to charter parents, whether you're chartered or you go to a private school, whatever, we just need to make sure that we're empowering and uplifting parent voice. That is what's most important in our communities, is that we are listening to the folks we serve and that we're honoring their perspectives and the change that they want to see.
Morgan, the point the council just made here in terms of, again, driving folks to polls, but you can't drive someone to the polls if they believe that there's no purpose in it. When you look at numbers, the reality is that, and this is true among all voters, but especially true among black people, the group that goes the highest is 65 plus. Amen. You talk to somebody 65 plus, that's right. You phone bank, they like, baby, when the National Coalition was like station, they were doing phone banking. They called her sister, she was 87, she said, listen, y'all need to call somebody else. My son is picking me up at this time, taking me to the polls to bring me back home. She had a plan already mapped out. Then the next group is 55, 64. Then the next group will go down. The reality is the lowest voting group in America, black or otherwise, is 1835, which also happens to be the largest block of voters. So when I tell millennials and Gen Z, don't complain about all these old folk running stuff, they vote. That's right. Mm-hmm. How do you communicate that? The issues to millennial and Gen Z folks who are reading the tribe, to get them to understand that you can't complain about something if you check out the process.
Thank you so much for that question. The tribe, we do reach primarily millennials and Gen Z, and we're able to break down topics like politics in a way that they can understand. I think that we have to look at the way that this country and our city has divested from education. A Democrat, Rahm Emanuel, is the one who closed down 50 schools. And a lot of kids were lost in the system. So, and then we look at young voters and say that they're not involved when a lot of them are struggling to read and write. They don't understand the role that government plays in our lives. So we really have to do that outreach, but it starts with education and civic engagement and getting them involved early so that they understand the role that government plays in their lives.
Rufus, you now host the morning show on WB Radio, and I remember when I was hosting that show, I brought you on for a series of, let's just say, they were frank conversations. You were, of course, over the school system, then you're now on this side here. Talk about how we have to be better in connecting the dots for listeners, viewers, and readers, so they understand how all of these things are impacted. So who's in the White House, who's the United States Senator, who's in Congress, who's the governor, who's the state rep, state senator, county, city, school board, how all of these roles directly impact public policy in our community.
I appreciate that question, Roland. And I didn't notice the fact that I'm a captain, you're an alpha, that I was the last one you called.
I would say in your mind, you best last. Y'all, we do this all the time.
You know, Roland, it's been an interesting process in going through this every morning where I did what you did, which is come on and try to give good information to our people. And what I'm learning from there and what I learned even from outside of there in the last week, having had some opportunity to talk to some young people, is that there's a gap in information between us and them. I want to ask, first of all, thank you all for coming out. There were a whole lot of places you all could have been. Thank you all for being here. Let me ask a question of you all. Anybody who's heard of Project 2025, raise your hand. Everybody's hand is up, just about. What's interesting is the young people that I talked to last week, were not familiar with Project 2025. And so when I mentioned it to them, they immediately went to their phones to find out, but I had to mention it to them. And so what was clear to me is that they're getting their information, as Reverend Sharpman pointed out, there has to be a credible source for them to get information from. And that credible source so often is you.
That's right.
Because we do have a dearth of black media. So thrilled that WVON exists because we come on and talk to each other, irrespective of who else is listening. Within our schools and within the school structure, there's some gaps. The schools do a lot of things. The question is, what are the schools supposed to do? And we asked that question when I was there, what is the role of education? What is the role of Chicago Public Schools? What is it that we're supposed to do? It was to educate, inspire, and transform is what we came to. Educate, inspire, and transform. But when we get to the nuts of things like what we're dealing with now in terms of the variables in society, the differences in the branches of government, given all that's going on and all the different places in which they get information, many of which are not verifiable. TikTok is not a verifiable place. But this is where many of them are getting it from. And if they see something that's interesting, then they share it. And all this bad information gets shared amongst all of them, which is really where we, knowledgeable, have to step in and do that. We've got to put our arms around young folks beyond what's in the schools and help them to understand and appreciate what these things are. They've got to know what's at stake because the things that we do are things that are truly beneficial for them, more so than what's beneficial for them.
All right, so everybody had an opportunity to talk, so, this one forward, going to comment, just let me know, Mr. John Davis, and don't need to do the, sort of script review here. But I'm start this round with Reverend Sharpman on that particular point. Misinformation is huge. In 2016, the largest Black Lives Matter Facebook page was a Russian troll farm. We know for a fact, North Korea, Iran, others, they've been targeting African Americans. For African Americans, there's a distrust of government because of a variety of reasons that have all been well earned. And so to the point Rufus just made, I see us having to operate in the capacity of feeding, I guess the example of Elijah Muhammad was saying, you can get a very glass of water, or a clean glass of water. We have to be fixated on rooting out disinformation. I told this story, my mom posted something out there in the chat, and it was calling mom, don't you post nothing else. In the family chat. And then she asked me first. and I know, and again, but part of the problem, a lot of us, man, I ain't checked my mama like that. But mama was putting some wrong information out. That happens, it relegates a lot of our folks. They see something on Facebook, and it looks credible, and they spread it, and I realize it. The moment it goes to that group chat, boom, it's out. So, talk about, again, how we have to take ownership of driving real, clean, factual information to our people and stopping the lie the moment it comes upon us.
No, I think that's vital, particularly if we're going to, as she addressed, Gen Z and all, because part of the problem is they're getting some misinformation or being told that is not going to solve anything, voting is not going to.
That shows that they are getting their information largely from Instagram and TikTok.
That's right. And they need to know who owns these things and what the agenda is. And I don't think we do enough of supporting and telling our community, particularly our young people, to support those independent, particularly Black-owned sources that will have a long track record. When I grew up, I couldn't wait for Wednesdays to see what Jet Magazine had out, or Ebony every month, or on and on and on. You don't have that anymore, and we've allowed that to go unchecked.
Unreal.
And like I was saying to you, I read some of the youth department in Nash Academic regularly, brought some of the students over from the Palestinian movement. And I said, let's talk. I've been to Palestine, I know Yasser Arafat. They said, well, we want you to come do this, that, and that. I said, I support that, but let me ask you 2 questions. They said, what? I said, y'all have been in front of these colleges at that time for 30 days. Who's paying for the tents? They said, what do you mean? I said, I do marches. I know how much this costs.
Come on.
A whole lot of money. Yeah. I know 2-day marches in Washington cost me $50,000. You kids ain't paying for them. Says, who's paying for the tickets? And they look at each other and say, I don't know. I said, well, then answer the second question. And I go out there and lay the ticket with you if you answer. Why are y'all all disrupting and marching on Biden and Harris, and nobody's marched on Trump? Trump is an open ally of Netanyahu. Why ain't y'all mad at him? He had a rally in the Bronx, and y'all didn't say nothing. Yeah.
People are protesting Democrats because those are the candidates who they actually voted for. So they're looking to hold the public figures who they voted for to represent them.
But a lot of them that are in these protests ain't voted for nobody.
I have to disagree. I speak on behalf of the Chicago organizing community that have been doing intergenerational organizing, like CAA, RPR, French Chapman, that whole group. These are active civic engagement champions, really.
And they are. I know who you're talking about. But I know that there are some that are manipulated. Just like they did us with Black Lives Matter. They came in, and the leaders of Black Lives Matter worked with us with George Floyd. Some other forces get people on the side that destroy with their body. Groups you talking about, crazy groups.
In fact, we had a protest at Columbus.
Right.
When they stole the children. The group was on the meeting chat. The first question was, who is the group? What we found out was, student leaders said, we don't know who that was.
That's what I want to say.
So, what we did, again, this is where we have to, you're right.
Yeah, there's always infiltrators
Right.
that can't like distract from what the demands are.
But here's what happens. The major fire that was started in Minneapolis, that was blamed on black people, that was actually an infiltrator.
That's right.
And what happens is, media takes that and goes, Black Lives Matter, and city on fire. So, to Meredith's point, we have to be always mindful of who are the folk who are showing up. Because remember, even Dr. King marched in Memphis, when the youth in the back of the parade caused the problem.
Right.
He got blamed for what they did. So
But the danger that, that's why I say
There
that
you go.
So the danger that King got blamed for the riots and disruptors in the back, they called themselves intruders. That he only came back to Memphis to prove he could do nothing about the march, and that's when they killed him. So what I'm saying is, you underscore my point. If we have credible people that we trust, then you can tell us who's doing this in Chicago.
Right.
But if we don't have credible sources that we can trust, we don't know the setup from who's legitimate. And
that's why anybody knows, if you're an organizer, when you come into a city, you're like, who real? Who real? I mean, listen, when I moved to Chicago, I mean, that's my whole, people coming at me, and I'm sitting going, they legitimate. and then you know the game. And here's a perfect example I'm talking about how we get played on. Associated Press does a story. Biden cuts $35 billion from HBCUs. Newsweek puts it on the cover. We wake up and several prominent pastors and black actors I know had the Newsweek cover on their social media condemning the administration. I knew it was a lie. I picked the phone and said, take it down now. You are advancing a lie. I then went on the show and explained, first of all, here's where 35 came from. Here's what the initial amount was. Here's what was for Hispanic, Hispanic, for black. And then show the real information. And so if you allow that lie for me to go out, and so what I tell black folks is, when we say something, whether you're a preacher or an activist, your first response should be, where'd that come from? What's the source? And then you confirm it with somebody who knows. And that's vital because if we react immediately emotionally, we actually become participants in the misinformation.
So this is where I'm gonna sound like a broken record.
For me,
So,
Listen now.
saw Trump interviewed by NABJ.
Come on.
Roland, I wrote about you. There was not a man on that panel. Trump don't need to be interviewed by some women. Trump needs to be interviewed by a brother.
Yeah.
I suggested in the article that Roland Martin should have been on the stage and he should have been interviewed. Now, I got calls, you got calls, Rufus. Are you at NABJ? Are you going? And I said, NABJ is not for us. We are black-owned media.
Come on.
What does it mean? It means free.
All right.
It means we are free to speak about the black community or whatever we want to speak about. There's no censorship. There's no producer. There's no team. There's no committee to say, I don't think you should say that. NABJ has employees who are black and work for mainstream corporate media. Lester Holt can't ask what Roland can. And he's a wonderful man. Okay? If you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, Al on Good Morning Joe is very different than anybody on there. He brings up insights, he brings up history, and I just love to see the white men's faces just rock. To say, did he say that? Or I didn't know that? Or why didn't I know that? And they just say, thank you, Reverend Al, because he done dropped a bomb on somebody. Okay, now, here's the second thing. We got an important election coming up. This election is not about a woman and a man. This election is not about a black woman and a white man. This election is about sanity and insanity. This election is about a person trying to take us backwards and to bring Hitler, Mussolini-like strategies into our country to take over our government so that we will never vote again. Listen to what this man is saying. There will be a bloodbath if you all lose. You will never have to vote again. Blah, blah. Listen to what he is saying. This is about another America. Make America great again. Well, when it was great again, we was mightily excited.
Come on, let's go.
As to what he's talking about. Be real clear. You got to do some research. You got to know who you are listening to. If you read Indigo, I am not the Tribune.
Right.
That is not what I'm writing. That is not what Morgan is writing. We write into our community, for our community, by our community, and about our community from a perspective that affects our community. And these are very, very, very important things to know. Everything black ain't black.
I remember when we launched News 1 Now TV 1 to television press critics in LA, and I was asked the question. They said, well, how are you going to compete against Good Morning America and Today Show? And I had the exact same view when I ran with them versus Tribune Sun-Times. I said, I'm not competing with them. I said, this is most stuff they cover I don't care about. I said, but they will never be able to out-black me. On stuff that is ours, they can throw 20 people at it. They will never be able to out-black me, which is why when you see certain stories, Ben Crump will tell you, his clients have said, no, we don't do Roland before we do this Today Show, because he's covering these stories every day. So this is where we have to understand in terms of how we have to be responding to the issues. But to the point of working with social media, our artists may be small, but how we're able to use those platforms to amplify what we do.
So Rufus asked this great question earlier. what is the purpose of schools, right? And I do believe that there is a purpose for schools with regard to developing civic-minded, civically engaged leaders who can think critically. Those questions that you asked earlier, those 3 questions, like when you see something, like these are the ways to interrogate what you see. Guess where we talk about those questions? In schools. And so, like, I believe that there's going to be a lot of misinformation out here. Social media is not going anywhere. TikTok, for the time being, not going anywhere. And this is where our kids are going to absorb information, whether we like it or not. Whether we want to, create a different world, it doesn't matter. They're getting their information from spaces. But those questions that you ask, we talk about these things at schools. And this is where we empower our students to really think deeply about what they're seeing and it helps them from going over there to going over here, So I just want to, name that. And, I have the privilege of serving high schoolers, 12,000 high schoolers throughout the city of Chicago. And over the past few years, we've registered 4,000 students who are eligible. And we've done March to the Polls, because it's not just registering, you got to get to the polls too. So there is a place. There are solutions for these, both in terms of action, but also like how we empower our students to think about this.
Which is why we're trying to get you ready in terms of the importance of the Black church. If there is a place where I believe the Black church has failed, is that we left the freedom school concept. In Chicago, they go back to school, they said, no, y'all going to school, but you're going to go to freedom school at church. The reality is we're not getting civics in schools. Right. And this is where, I believe, that's really what the Saturday morning workshop is about. It's really what y'all do with NAN every Saturday. We have to actually, Rufus, create freedom schools to specifically teach civics, to say, you might think Danny Davis is your congressman, when in fact, no, it's actually Lauren Underwood. You need to understand who is actually your alderman and how these things work. Because we wait, then we come vote. But if I'm uninformed, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I think that's one thing that we have to be thinking about, creating freedom schools to teach civics in 2024 year.
Let me say this, man, and it even goes beyond just what we do in schools. Back in 1983, when Harold Washington became mayor, there was a lot of engagement that we all had in politics.
In fact, in that election, 85% of all eligible Black folks voted, that was one of the highest, numbers since the 64 voting rights. 85%.
Engaged and informed. For all of us who were reaching the profession at that time, Roland started an organization called Young Executives in Politics. And we used to go and we would sit at his feet and we would learn much more about a number of the things that we're talking about now. So my appeal to the audience, the question is, who's doing that? Right. Who is bringing forth our young people? Who's bringing forth us?
Well, first of all, we keep saying young, it's a bunch of 40, 50, 60-year-old folks. Literally, I mean, we have to understand, folks. Louisiana is 1/3 Black. This had an election. You literally had 26% turnout. Atlanta, in 2 cycles, almost had a white mayor. Right. So we have to understand that there are places where we have numbers that we're not maximizing our numbers because so much in our process. And so that's what I mean. We have to understand that we could literally flip elections all across the country if we voted at 65 to 70% of our capacity. The problem is, in many places, it's 20, 24, 28, 30, and we excited if it hits 35.
I'm gonna get back to cohesiveness and unity, and because I think, when you talk about schools, you talk about the church. Black relationships are in crisis right now. What do I mean by that? You and Rufus can talk about this is the role of school and teaching. Then we gotta get into this personal relationship between the parent and the teacher, which is that crisis. There's no trust there. Y'all listen to my show, y'all know I talk about me has been teaching Chicago public schools for over 20 years. years, and she got cursed out by the first time in her career by a student's mother. The mother does not trust the school. She pulled her kid out of the school. We have these chasms that exist. Here in the church, you got people out there say, man, those churches don't represent me. Those preachers, man, they just do this. I'm not. We create separation. The teachers, man, they're not teaching our kids right. I'm going in there and I'm arguing with the teacher. Roland, you and Rufus are fraternities, right? There's a movement out here right now against the whole black fraternity and sorority community. Those, man, we see all the black fraternities and sororities. They're on this level. They don't represent us. We got to get that gap situation together. Students, teachers, parents, they gotta be like this. Yeah, because you can't even teach civics to a child if her parents don't trust the people that you're teaching civics about.
But I don't think you're gonna be able to do that unless you confront the reality of our organizations moving outside of what's internal. What I mean by that is, and I've said this all around the country for years, Divine Nine represents more than 2 million members. We're international, national, regional, state, grad, undergrad, and program going down to elementary school. The question is, how often have you seen 100 to 200 individuals in black and gold, in pink and green, in red and white, at the school board meeting, city council meeting, the county commissioners meeting, the state capital? We have infrastructure. Listen, I keep asking the question. I have yet to see Prince Hall Masons and Eastern Stars mobilized for the election. What is the point of having black infrastructure if it's not being used? The
reason why it's not being used is because it's not black trust.
No. But the point I'm raising is these are black organizations that have membership. So I think we're talking about strategic voting. We have to be thinking differently. I think what we're not doing, Reverend, we're not challenging our black leadership to say, are you spending more time on your insular business as opposed to the actual advancement of the black community?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And the whole idea that you raised about having freedom schools again falls right into that, because those are the structures that can do it. The problem is, going to his point about relationships, is that the so-called leadership, young and old, need to start relating and talking to each other about different roles that we can play. And that this person does this person, because most of us don't even understand what each other's doing. People ask, I had a guy ask me about a month ago, why do you do all of the funerals when somebody gets killed? I said, one, because the family called me. Usually, I never heard about it from me. And second, because we pay for the funerals. Why do we pay for the funerals? So most families don't expect they're going to have a funeral. And we try to help them. But we need the young activists to keep doing what y'all do. I didn't come to town to replace y'all. I come to enhance y'all.
Thank you.
So if we are not talking to each other, we think we each other's competition or enemies. Rather than sitting down and saying, I disagree with you on this, Reverend. I disagree with you on this, activist. And then finding a way to bond that. Then you go, like you say, to the structure. Why are we not doing more about voting? Why did the divine nine? It has to start with a dialogue with those of us that have our separate silos talking to the community that are not even talking to each other.
Let me say, Roland, we heard the challenge. You had 55,000 men on the black men, we win the black men call the day after Vice President Harris became the person. And you made that same challenge there, you made the challenge when you were on my show to talk about it. I can tell you for sure, and I'm sure that the others have done the same thing. But in Capital Alpha side, we have adopted a social action committee to do just those things. And that committee will work with the other Divine Nine to try and make sure that within this infrastructure, there is cohesiveness that moves us toward the purposes of which you speak. When we think about this, and I heard these conversations, and Divine Nine certainly falls within there, about black elites and the separation. And as you talk about us coming together, I then go back again to social media. And who is it that's pulling these things in, that's pulling us apart? That's throwing out the things that say these groups are not together, therefore nobody's paying them attention. That goes in and says the Democrats have never done anything for us, so why should I vote Democrat? Nobody's ever done anything for us, so why should I vote? That's coming from a lot of places that we didn't have back during the day, because social media, Russia, China, was able to put this information out there, but we are more collective than we otherwise would see. The unity is there. We just can't keep hearing from other places that it's not, and follow that method, but follow what's really happening.
Well, so you made a point about, you made a point about that we would like to call. So I had someone who challenged me on that because the other calls, when they raised the money, it always began bad. So a person came to me and said, you know, folks are upset because y'all did it different. I said, oh, I know, it was my idea. Now I understand what we did. When we raised that $1.4 million on that call, we specifically said half will go to the campaign, but half will actually go to black male groups who are doing on the ground activation. So the person said, well, y'all do it different than everybody else. I said, I know. That was on purpose. Because I have complained that part of the problem is that our grassroots groups are rarely funded. That's right. I said, so why am I going to raise money to send it to somebody and then beg them to send some back? But it was like, no, we're going to cut this up in half. And 146 groups applied for grants for that $750,000. But that's what I mean by we have to be thinking differently. And so I had no problem saying we did it differently, and I said we're going to do it again because I can't complain about one thing and then not create a solution that there is more.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you did that, actually. I listened into a couple of the win-win right calls just to see what they were talking about. And I asked them, what are our demands? You have us fundraising, but we haven't seen the platform yet. And we're also not going to the candidate with saying, okay, we're going to provide this amount of funding, and we want to see this agenda for Black people pushed forward. And that's one thing that I'm looking for our Black leaders to do. The truth is, a lot of the groups that we've been mentioning, they've been platforms for us to assimilate into white culture, get corporate power, and move around and have position. But, you know, we have Black leadership here in Chicago. We have a Black police superintendent who can't get the people who are connected to the Oath Keepers and white supremacist groups off the force. So it doesn't matter if we have position, if we don't have power. We need to be moving and thinking about our collective.
Come on.
That folk may not be aware of. First of all, the Wing of Black People called came every Sunday for 4 years. They started in April of 2020 with the express purpose of pushing Biden to select then Senator Tom Harris to be here. That was the purpose of the call. They achieved that. Let me explain to you what happened from those same systems that people may not realize. When all the calls after June 27th came out to replace Biden, y'all might know this. Everybody kept saying, we need an energetic, young nominee. They kept saying, we need an open convention process. They were never mentioning her name. But let me explain to y'all what happened.
Tell it.
Those same Black women were the ones on the rules committee. What they then did was, they used the rules to block other folk from running.
And the block the open convention.
Right, so, you gotta understand, so I understand your point. So what I'm saying is, but that was a direct result of those sisters for 4 years organizing. They understood the power structure, and so when Joe Manchin goes, I might run, they went, you can't run, so what I'm saying is, brilliance of those systems, they weren't just meeting to meet. They actually were infiltrating the levels of power when the time came, when they were trying to take, because understand, because I know what I heard, they were trying to take out Biden and Harris. What happened was 1,400 black women, and they actually wanted 10,000, when they released that letter saying, no, we ain't having this, the Democratic Party faced an upheaval from black people who were positioned by saying, try to open the convention process. This is what's about to happen. So that's why when he dropped out and she began making phone calls, Black Power coalesced immediately and they poured in the last point. They tried, y'all should thank the Congressional Black Caucus. Yeah. Why? Because the Congressional Black Caucus, only one member broke ranks and called for an open convention. So the reason she is a nominee is because black women use the power, and the Congressional Black Caucus said, y'all are not going to overlook that system.
But
So,
the point is that what you said is right, because Leah Daughtry and Don Brazilian call all of us, so everybody got in line. But the point is that if we do, like she's talking about, we have, I don't know about the black chief here, I'm glad to hear that, but you've got black chiefs all over this country that fight for bad cops when we come in, worse than some of the whites. When you don't have blacks that do that, we've got to be willing to say they either don't have the power or you're on the wrong side. Because blacks cannot see leadership as a celebrity status. They have to see it as a service. And what you become a black leader for. Because you may be trying to be a black leader against our agenda and want to have whatever experience, but if we're not talking to each other, we don't have the right information. So I think that fact that those sisters who did exactly what you said, connected with the caucus, connected with those of us that were talking about that's exactly right. But at the same time, it needs to be down to a local basis. So we're not tricked into dealing with just somebody, just because somebody's our color, they're our kind.
Hello.
Because it's time for things to talk again. We're discussing strategic vote. And I can't get Chicago not say this. The reason those systems were in place to do that is because Reverend Jackson. That's right. Reverend Jackson taught them if you don't know the rules, then you can't play the game. That's right. So, and listen, folks, I do this all the time. Folks say all kinds of stuff about Reverend, and let me be real clear. Between Reverend Jackson, Ron Brown, Dr. Ron Walters, Harold Ickes, after 1988, they literally changed the rules. There is no Obama in 08, unless the rules were changed in 1988. And this is numbers. Democrats used to have one to take off. In 08, Hillary won Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, California, and it included Michigan and Florida. Under the old rules, she would have been the nominee. The Reverend changed the rules. They then put in those black folks on committees to now be additional power. So, him running in 88, all the sisters work for him, put him in position in 2024 to hold the line. That's how she's a nominee. So when we talk about strategic voting, we have to be thinking beyond the election and then maintain the coalition term after the election. You know, Reverend has to go. So make what you think. We got to maintain those groups after the election is over to get what we want.
Thank you. What Reverend did, what Reverend Jackson did, we say, no, Obama is not Reverend Jackson. Go back one.
No, Reverend Jackson.
No Clinton.
Right.
No Clinton. Clinton is the first one who used those rules. Then, when Reverend opened up not just the process, but the DNC,
Yes, sir.
then President Roland was a secretary. That was really Daryl's secretary. Okay, Donna Brazil, all of that group that you're talking about.
She's not eligible campaign manager.
That's right.
Let's work that.
All of
But
that group.
not only did they change the rules, they put them on the rules committee.
That's
And they came out of that movement, and that is just a fact. But again, it is because the mission was the objective, right? Not the position. Right. And what we are trying to deal with now is people that want the position with no mission. And we've got to make sure the people we position are part of our mission.
Period.